So today we're jumping over section 2. We're going to go back to it tomorrow. Today we're going to cover section 3, and we're going to learn how to use synthetic division and long division. Now, before I get into the actual synthetic and the long division, let me review third grade division. Okay, so when you learned how to divide in third grade and you did long division, let's say I wanted to divide 484 by 4. Remember, what you're doing is you're thinking, what do I need to multiply, or how many times does 4 go into 4? And then it'll go in here once. And then remember, you multiplied, and then you wrote that product underneath, and then remember, you subtracted. Then you bring down the next number. You look to see, what are you going to multiply 4 by to make it an 8, or how many times does 4 go into 8? Goes in here twice. Then you'll multiply it, and then subtract, and then bring down. And then again, it goes in here once. You multiply and subtract. We're going to use this same thinking, but with polynomials. So let's go ahead. Now, notice all of these steps here. Again, it's not that challenging. I know it's a lot of words, but as we go through the examples, it'll get easier. So the first thing you need to do is arrange all the terms of the dividend and the divisor in descending powers. So you need to put the biggest exponent down to the constant. If there's any missing terms, you're going to fill it in with a 0. Then what we're going to do is divide the first term of the dividend by the first term of the divisor. The result is the first term of the quotient. We're going to multiply every term in the division by the first term in the quotient. We're going to write the resulting product beneath the dividend with the terms lined up. Then we'll change the signs and add the like terms. Then we'll bring down the next term in the original dividend and write it next to the remainder. We'll keep repeating this process until the remainder can no longer be divided and the degree on the remainder is less than the degree on the divisor. We're going to be writing our answers as the quotient, the number we get on top of the division box, and then the remainder over the divisor, sort of like a mixed number. I know it's a lot of words, but it's really not that complicated. So let's go ahead and try some examples. So here's my first example. The dividend is your numerator. The divisor is the denominator. So the dividend goes in the division box. So I'm going to write x squared minus x minus 2, and then divided by that divisor, which is the denominator. Now, remember, it needs to be in order from the largest exponent down to the constant. This was already presented to me in that order, so I did not need to arrange anything. Now, once we do this division, our quotient is always going to be 1 degree less than what the degree is in the dividend. So let's go ahead, and here's what we're going to be doing. So we're going to look at our first term in the divisor, and then the first term here, actually the first term in the divisor and the first term in the dividend. So we need to look at x, and we need to decide, what am I going to multiply this x by to make it an x squared? And I'm going to multiply it by x. I am going to write that x on top of the second term, not the first one. So x times x is going to give me x squared. So I'm going to distribute the x to the x and the x to the 1. This is what I'm going to write underneath. Now, remember, we're subtracting here. So what I like to do is like a keep, change, flip. So what I'm going to do is change all of the signs to opposite, so I don't forget to subtract anything. So I'm going to make this negative and this positive. And now I'm going to add my like terms. Notice on this one, actually this should have been a plus sign to begin with. And then I make it opposite. So now this is gone. The x squared minus x squared cancels, but then over here I have negative x plus negative x, and this gives me negative 2x. Then I bring down my next number from my dividend, And now, again, I'm going to look to see, what am I going to multiply x by to make it a negative 2x? And I'm going to multiply it by negative 2. I'm going to distribute negative 2 to the x, negative 2 to the 1. So I get negative 2x minus 2. Change, flip it, or change the signs to opposite. And now I'll add my like terms. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. Negative 2x plus 2x is also 0. So both of these canceled out. I get a remainder of 0. So my quotient here, or the answer, is going to be x minus 2. Let's try the next one. So I'm going to take the numerator. It goes in the division box. It's my dividend. The denominator is the divisor. And again, what am I going to multiply x by to make it x squared? I'm going to multiply it by x. I need to distribute the x to the x and the x to the 3. I change the signs to opposite because I'm subtracting. And now this cancels out. And I'm adding up negative 1x plus negative 3x. I forgot to write the x here. And then now I get negative 4x. I bring down the negative 2. And now I repeat the process. What am I going to multiply x to make it become a negative 4x? I'm going to multiply it by negative 4. I'm going to distribute the negative 4. Negative 4x minus 12. Change all the signs to opposite. The 4x's cancel out. And then I get negative 2 plus 12, and I get 10. Now remember, when you have a remainder, we're going to write it like a mixed number. So we're going to take that remainder and put it over the divisor. So the final quotient here is x minus 4 plus the remainder over the divisor. The next one's already in standard form. So I'm going to take the 5x cubed minus 6x squared minus 28x minus 2 divided by x plus 2. I need to look and see, what am I going to multiply x by to make it a 5x cubed? And I'm going to be multiplying it by 5x squared. I'm going to distribute the 5x squared to the x and to the 2. This gives me 5x cubed plus 10x squared. I change the signs to opposite, and then I add up my like terms. So the 5x cubes cancel, and then I add negative 6x squared plus negative 10x squared, and I get negative 16x squared. Bring down my next term. And now I need to figure out, what am I going to multiply x by to make it a negative 16x squared, and that will be negative 16x. I'm going to go ahead and multiply. And negative 16x times 2 is negative 32x. Change the signs to opposite. The 16x squareds cancel out. And then I'm adding negative 28x plus 32, which gives me positive 4x. Bring down the last term. What am I going to multiply x by to make it a 4x? And I'm going to multiply it by positive 4. Distribute. Change the signs to opposite. The 4x's cancel out. Negative 2 plus negative 8, and I get negative 10. That is my remainder. Now notice it's a negative, so when I go to write it up here next to my quotient, I'm putting it in as a subtraction sign. So again, the final quotient is 5x squared minus 16x plus 4, and then include the remainder as a fraction. Okay, the next one, x to the third minus 1. Notice, okay, so here, notice it jumps from an x to the third power to a constant. So remember, if you're missing any terms, we're going to fill them in with zeros. So x to the third, there's no x squared term, so I'm going to put a plus 0x squared plus 0x and then minus 1. The divisor is fine. It goes from an x to a constant. And now I start the process. What am I going to multiply x by to make it x cubed? I'm going to multiply it by an x squared. I'm going to distribute x squared to the x squared to the 1. Going to change the signs to opposite. The x cubes cancel out. And then 0 plus negative x squared gives me negative x squared. Bring down the next term. What am I going to multiply x by to make it a negative x squared? I'm going to multiply it by a negative x. I'm going to distribute it. Negative x squared minus x. Change the signs to opposite. The x squareds cancel out. And then I'm going to add 0 plus 1x, and I just get 1x. Bring down the last term. What am I going to multiply x by to make it an x? I'm going to multiply it by 1. So 1 times x is x, 1 times 1 is 1. Change the signs to opposite, and I get a negative 2 as my remainder. So again, you take your negative 2, we're going to write it as a fraction. So negative 2 over x plus 1. So your quotient here is x squared minus x plus 1 minus 2 over x plus 1. Synthetic division. Again, you're going to arrange the polynomial, again, in descending order of powers. You're going to fill in any zeros for a coefficient for any missing term. We're going to take the given divisor and make sure it's written in the form x minus c. We're going to write c to the left and the coefficients to the right. We'll bring down the first term. We're going to multiply the outside term by the term brought down, write the product in the next column. We'll add, multiply, and then write it in the next column. We're going to repeat until all the columns are filled in. The last term is the remainder, and the degree of the first term is going to be 1 less than the degree in the dividend. Now, in order to use synthetic division, it has to be, your divisor has to be a binomial. If your divisor is not a binomial, then you have to use long division. So now the next examples I'm going to do are the same 4 examples I just did, but now I'm going to do the same problem using synthetic. Now, remember, this divisor here has to be in the form x minus c. So in order to get to that form, what really went in here is x minus negative 1, because that's why it's a plus sign. So in order to get the number that's going to go outside of our synthetic division box, we're going to take that divisor and we're going to set it equal to 0, because we need to get our c value. So x is going to equal, or c is going to equal, the value here, our c is going to be negative 1, because this is x equals c. So our c value is going to be negative 1, and we're going to write that right here. So essentially, because it's a binomial, it's just going to be the opposite sign. Then I'm going to take all of the coefficients of the dividend and only write the coefficients. So x squared, its coefficient is 1. The negative x is a negative 1, and then the negative 2. All I did was take all of the coefficients right here of my divisor, and I put it in my division box. And this is like an upside down division box. It looks like an L. So now the process is to bring down the first term. I'm now going to multiply -1 times the 1, and then I write that answer underneath in my second column. So -1 times 1 is -1. I add the column. I don't do any keep, change, flip here. So then I get -2. Then I'm gonna, again, multiply this -1 times the -2 and write the answer in the next column. And then I add up the column. This is my remainder. This is gonna be my constant, and this is my x term. So notice it's 1 degree less than the divisor. So now, to write your answer, you're gonna take the x and match it with its coefficient. So it's x, then the constant goes together here. So it's just -2, and then remainder 0. Same quotient I got when I did example number 1. Again, we're gonna set it up. Now you can either, to get the number that goes outside of that synthetic division, you could go ahead and solve this, but again, it's just the opposite sign. So -3 will go here. Take all the coefficients and put them in here. And now bring down the first term. Remember, we're going to multiply -3 times 1. Add the column. I get -4. Multiply. I get +12. Add the column. And I get 10. Again, if you want to start, this is the remainder always, then the constant, then the x. Now, if there were more terms than like if it were an x to the 4th, then the next one would be x squared, then x cubed. But this one, it only takes us as far as x. So again, write these two together. So this is a 1x, then the constant, and then remember the remainder is written as a fraction. All right, 1. Again, we're taking only the coefficients. So what we're putting outside here is a -2. I'm going to take my 5, my -6, my -28, and my -2. Bring down the first term. Multiply it. -2 times 5. I get -10. Add the column. I get -16. Multiply. -16 times -2. I get +32. Add the column. I get +4. Multiply 4 and -2, and I get -8. Add the column, -10. So again, remember this is remainder, constant, x squared. Remember, the quotient is always going to be 1 degree lower than the dividend. So my quotient is 5x squared minus 16x plus 4 minus 10 over x plus 2. Here we go. So this one, again, we're going to use -1, opposite sign. The x cubed has a coefficient of 1. I need to fill in because remember what we're doing here is x to the third plus 0x squared plus 0x minus 1. So I need to fill in 2 zeros and then the -1. Bring down the first term. Multiply -1 and 1, and I get -1. Add the column. Multiply. Get +1. Add the column. Multiply. Get -1. And then my remainder is -2. So again, remainder, constant, x squared. So x squared minus x plus 1 minus 2 over x plus 1. All right, so this one, I cannot use synthetic because my divisor is a trinomial. So I have to do long division. So x squared plus 2x minus 3 over 2x to the 4th plus 4x to the 3rd minus 5x squared plus 3x minus 2. So what am I going to multiply x squared by to make it 2x to the fourth? I'm going to be multiplying it by 2x squared. I'm going to distribute the 2x squared to all three terms. So 2x to the fourth plus 4x to the third minus 6x squared. Change all of the signs to opposite. And now the 2x to the fourth cancels, and so does the 4x to the third. So then the only thing I need to combine here is the negative 5x squared plus 6x squared, which just gives me 1x squared. Now, because I canceled two terms, I need to bring down two terms. So I bring down the 3x and the negative 2. So I eliminated 2, so I also have to bring down 2. So now what am I going to multiply x squared by to make it x squared? I'm going to multiply it by 1. So I'm going to distribute the 1 to all three. So I get x squared plus 2x minus 3. Change the signs to opposite. And then add your columns, or add your like terms. So negative 2 plus 3 is 1. Negative 3 plus negative 2 is just going to be x. And then the x squared's canceled. So this is my remainder. So my final quotient, I would take this, 2x squared. Oops. So 2x squared plus 1 plus x plus 1 over that trinomial. And that's your final quotient. Because you would have added the x plus 1 over the x squared plus 2x minus 3.